Hi, my friend. It's Pat Sloan here on Monday morning. So, I have been very busy, girl. I have been taking my quilts and looking through them and sorting them into categories. And today, which is a little sooner than I thought I might do it, today I'm going to show you what I've done and where I am and why I might not get to some things. No, I will. I'll get to everything. I'll get to everything. Somehow I'll get to everything. So I have pulled all of my quilts. I brought them down into my living room. All but maybe 50 of them. No, probably more like 60 or 75 of them. And remember, these are all sizes. Everything from a small piece to a larger piece. They're not all bed-size quilts. I couldn't do all bed-size quilts. I'd be nuts. So there are lots and lots of sizes, from a little wall hanging to full-size bed quilts. So here's a picture. Here it is of me with all of the quilts piled in the living room, all but some that were on one shelf I didn't bring in, and things on the walls. So I didn't take anything off of the walls. And these are all projects that are completed. So isn't that crazy? On my website today, link is down below, and click that subscribe so we can be friends. So if you go over to my website, I have some other photos of pictures of it. And what I did is pull them all in because I wanted to have one photo of everything before I start donating the quilts to the charity. Because this will be it. Once I give them away, they're not mine anymore, and I won't be able to do that picture. I'm so glad I did it. We also decided at that point that we would, because I'll be downsizing the number of quilts, that we will shift the storage of them into our dining room eventually. But first, let me just take you a tour. Let me just do this short clip as I walk through the quilts in my living room. Well, I finally did it. I've wanted to do this for a really long time. I've wanted to bring all the quilts that I have down into one spot for a picture so I could see what I currently have. And this is pretty much all that I still own. There's quilts on the walls, which I didn't take down anything off the wall. So there's, quilts in the house on the walls. But these are the things that have been on shelves that I need to go through and document, and I haven't quite counted what's here yet. There's also probably at least 150 over the years that I've made that I don't own anymore. So I thought I'd just scan you around there. See my pillow, I put it up on top. The sofa is behind there. There you can see the quilts they're actually on my sofa. There, and I've got behind there, they're sitting on the top of the sofa, and just stacked everywhere. So I don't know, there's maybe 400 pieces here, and on this shelf, then I have another one whole shelf that's in the dining room there. So all of this I will be documenting and working on, taking pictures and sorting them, and a lot of them will go to charity. And I'm just excited to have it all together. Thank you so much for being here and taking a peek at the things that I've made over the past 30 years. So that was fun. It was immensely fun for me to be able to have all those together, and I so appreciate Greg being so reasonable to help me with all of it and make my dream come true of seeing everything and having a photo of it together. And then what I did is I spent the next few days putting them in groupings. I wouldn't say sorting them, but I was putting them in groupings so that then I can do the next step of documenting and making decisions. So the groupings that I did, because I have some very specific things like books. I've written 38, I have quilts here for 38 books. Book 39 is at my publisher. So I have 38 mounts of quilts for books. It's a lot of quilts. So I put all the book things together, and then I did a lot of magazine work, which a lot of those patterns are mine, but I've not republished them yet. And so after that, those book quilts, then I have things like our sew-alongs, different projects I may have done with another group, and I made something, those all, you know, are then grouped together. Then there's some areas where, like, I know I already had a group that was hanging in my living room and decorating with, that was all my green quilts. I considered them my green quilts at the time. So I kept all those together. I kept all the quilts together that I used in my museum exhibit, so that I can find them again. So they're together. So there's a couple little subcategories. I put a lot of the Christmas, not all of the Christmas, because there's a lot of Christmas in the books, but I put a lot of the Christmas things together, because eventually what I want to do is, like, let's say Christmas. I would look through the Christmas quilts and go like, okay, I can only decorate with so many, and I'm always going to make more. So which are my favorites, which have some sort of meaning, and then I will donate the others. So that's the process I'll go through. So you want to see what it looks like in my dining room now? I also have pictures of that on my website today. But here's another clip going into my dining room. So now I have them all redone in their temporary home while I'm able to go through them. This is the dining room. Now the quilt storage room. Got a light back in the corner. And these were all shelving that was up in the extra bedroom. So they're all down below. And I've done a count. So like this particular one, from top to bottom, I know there's 150 pieces. There's the most on this particular shelf. That's crazy, huh? Just crazy. So in this room, what you're looking at, you know, back in the corner, I have more. Ta-da! So out of this, let me just flip this around. So in this room, there are about 640 pieces. And then I still have my quilt tops to count, which aren't quite as many. Not quite as many. And then I'll be going through them and start sorting them. So I'm super excited. Thanks for being here. Thanks for looking through and cheering me on while I'm doing this. And I will be showing you lots of these on my videos. If you have never made stacks and stacks of quilts like this in a space, you will be quite shocked to hear the deafening, like the sound deafening. It just, like, it deadens. That's the word. It deadens the sound. So it feels, it's just a really weird feeling. You go in there and you talk, and like the sound doesn't go anywhere. It does. There's no echo at all. It's quite interesting. And I have a few. I have a little stack here I'm going to tell you about today. Look, I brought a little stack in, so I thought I would just, you know, go through some. And I know today on the calendar it says Scrapalicious, but, you know, we're not talking about that today. We're talking about quilts, and I guess you could call those scraps. They weren't scraps always to begin with. So where do you start? Where do you start? I thought I found these little pieces, and they're actually, the one is actually my very first quilt. And it is tiny, and I'll tell you why. I have other things I consider my first quilts. Like, I have a much bigger bed quilt that I made as a bedspread. I can really consider that my first quilt, and I have a whole story about it on my website. And then I made my first sampler for my beginner class, and that I consider my first quilt as well. But this is truly the very first quilt. And so here it is. You can see right from the start, I had no concept that a quilt had to be for a bed. The one that I made before this, which was I considered it a bedspread. You know, I used a quilt pattern, but I was really making a bedspread. And after that, I was introduced to quilting by people who made things of all variety of sizes. And this was the class that was being taught. It was a class in a quilt shop, and my friend Gwen had told me I should learn to quilt, and I was like, you know, I made that bedspread thing, and I don't know if I want to do that again. And so I signed up for this class because, one, I didn't need to make anything big. Like, I already knew that about myself, and I knew that about learning, is that I didn't want to dive in with the whole 9 yards. And this was by machine. The learn to quilt classes in my area at the time were only done by learning by hand, which was okay. And I'm really glad that I did. Someday I'll talk about that again. I have in the past, but it was amazing to learn to hand quilt, you know, quilt piece by hand, quilt by hand, applique by hand. But this was machine, and I'm like, I need to do this because I own a machine and it's faster. So I took what they called a miniature class. So my very first class was miniature. Then what they had is they had these little baskets of, they were probably fat quarters or fat eighths. I had clothing fabric. I didn't have any cotton. I didn't make anything with cottons. I maybe made a pillow once, you know. So I bought 2 of those, and then I had some leftover baby fabric. I must have made something for one of my nieces or babies that came along. I don't even know what that is. Maybe it was in the scrap bundle. It could have been, right? It could have been there. I know they were in little tubes. I know they weren't fat quarters. They were probably smaller because they were these little tubes. And I picked, I can remember thinking, well, I really don't care about this project. I'm only doing this project to learn something. I don't care what it looks like when it's done because I'm probably not going to keep it. There were actually 2 of these I made, and the other one I gave to my niece for her babies, you know, her baby dolls, and I happened to keep one of them. So there it is with, I'm sure everybody had this fabric, right? It's like, right, so they see this fabric here. Didn't you all own that fabric if you were doing things back in 1992? Who was quilting in 92? Oh my goodness. So the other one I did, which was not, it was a little bit later. This was, it was still in 92. I made this one. Another miniature. Was a little bit of Christmas fabric in it. Crazy, right? I don't even remember really taking that class. And then I hand stitched some little X's in there. So this was probably after I took my hand piecing class, but these are sewn. I'm pulling at them. They're sewn on the machine. They're not, this is sewn on the machine, but I hand stitched, you know, these little X's to hold it down for the quilting. This quilting was just, you know, just like a crosshatch, a big wide crosshatch. And I don't even think there's any batting in this one. No, there's no batting. I was like, I don't have any of that. I'm not going to buy it. It's like, I don't need that. I'm just practicing. It's like, okay, let me show you a couple other pieces that I just pulled off the stack. All right. So this was one that I believe I did for a magazine. And it's a quote. I think it's Dr. Seuss. These things are fun. And what is it? And fun is good. These things are fun and fun is good. So that is, I love doing that one. I thought it was great. And you know, I have an alphabet on my free pattern page. So if you want to do an applique, like do words, I have an alphabet. Here's the backing. Bright and cheerful. The front is one of my fabric lines called Nikki from quite a few years ago. So that's that fabric. I'll show you a few older ones now. Apparently, I found that I like pineapples. And I have several quilts with applique pineapples, including this one, which was also another fabric line of mine from a while back. So this is 4 pineapples. So there we go. And this one just has 1 fabric on the back, also from that fabric line. But I have rickrack on here down at the bottom for this, to put the little star and the leaves, see? Put rickrack. Isn't that fun? I love doing that. I love doing it. Okay, the other 2 are pieces that were have signatures on them. The first I didn't make, so I'm going to show it to you because if you signed this, leave me a comment. Let me see if they wrote the year. Yes, 2005. So this was made when I went to teach at a guild. And one of the ladies in the guild is Patches and Pieces Quilt Club, but nobody Roanoke. So this is down in Roanoke. Okay, so all you Virginia gals in Roanoke or guys that are down there, you know, they signed it. That's what I'm looking at. I forgot to show you that. So this is my fabrics and my applique design from my Red Work book. And there is all the signatures from the students that were in class that day. And we were not doing red work, but we were doing this asymmetrical, probably this class where we'd set things asymmetrical like this. So that's a keeper. And then this one is also signatures. And I'll tell you a little bit. It's this one was from a swap I did with one of my very first communities that I had, my quilt communities online, which was with Yahoo. So if you were in one of my Yahoo group, I only had one Yahoo group, but if you were in it, maybe you made me one of these churn dash blocks. This was in 2003, which I boldly put right on the front with my applique. So look at that. Isn't that fabulous? It is so awesome, and people signed it. Now I'm going to stick this. This is the last one for today. Let me just stick this up on the wall a second. All right, it's up on the wall, and I want to show you the colorations in it, because somebody was asking me, what do you do with different fabrics that come in to put them together if the colors don't quite match with some of the fabrics? So if you can see on here, like from a distance, it looks really cohesive. It doesn't really have the blocks pop out that are different. But this one up here has a peach background, which none of the other ones do. This one has a light green background, which isn't too much popping out. But this one here is really very different in color from the rest. Here's one that's very dark. Can you see that? It is like one really, it's a very dark block with a light center. But they work. When you put all of one, when you have more, when you're working with scraps, so this is our Scrapalicious portion. When you're working with scraps, the more and bigger it is, then that gives you space for the ones that are a little bit different to blend in. If I had fewer blocks, like if I only had 12 blocks there and one of them was very different, if it wasn't like in the center, like as a centerpiece, it would draw your eye to it. When there's more blocks, your eye has places to roam around and it just blends in. The other thing that helps it is that I kept those two vertical strips a color that was kind of muted, and so that takes on its own personality. I repeated it in the inner border, that same fabric, and then I used a darker frame on it, which I like to do. So okay, that's for today. And on our calendar, one of our friends noticed that I forgot to put the old school block of the month. Of course, is happening in July. I manually have to move all these things, and so I forgot to move it over, it seems. So just write it in there. Write it in. It'll be, I'll show mine around, I think they show theirs on the 12th, and so if you're at Persimmon Dreams, you can pick it up on the 12th, and I usually make my block afterwards by the 15th. So that's what I'm planning on. All right, my friend. I'm so happy you were here. Thank you for cheering me on again with my project to go through all of my quilts. I'm actually kind of excited to open them all up and look at them. So I love you. Mwah. See you online.